Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, watching the stars through the main view screen. The ship had been traveling through deep space for 3 months now, mapping new star systems and looking for planets that humans could live on someday. It was quiet work, but Jake enjoyed the peace of space exploration. The Horizon was not a big ship compared to the massive cargo vessels that traveled between Earth and Mars. She was built for science, not war. Her crew of 42 people spent their days taking pictures of planets, studying strange rocks from asteroids, and sending reports back to Earth. Jake had been doing this job for 8 years, and he loved every minute of it. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes sat at the tactical station, checking the ship's sensors for the 100th time that day. She was Jake's second in command and had served with him on 2 other exploration ships. Lisa was good at her job and never missed anything unusual on the sensors. Dr. Ben Carter worked at the science station, studying data from the latest planet they had found. Ben was young for a ship's science officer, only 28 years old, but he was brilliant. He could look at a rock and tell you everything about the planet it came from. The Kepler 4042 system was their current target. It had 7 planets, and 3 of them might be able to support human life. The Horizon had been studying the system for 2 weeks, taking detailed scans of each world. "Captain," Lisa called out suddenly. Her voice was sharp with concern. "I'm getting some strange readings on long-range sensors." Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of strange?" Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "Something big is moving toward us from the outer edge of the system. Actually, multiple somethings. I count 12 objects, each about 5 kilometers long." Ben looked up from his station. 5 kilometers? That's impossible. No one builds ships that big. "These readings say otherwise," Lisa replied. She looked at Jake with worry in her eyes. "Captain, they're moving faster than anything we've ever seen. They'll reach us in about 10 minutes. Jake felt his stomach drop. The Horizon was alone out here, millions of miles from the nearest human ship. If these unknown vessels were hostile, his small exploration ship would be helpless. "Red alert," Jake ordered. "All hands to battle stations." The ship's alarm began to sound, and the bridge lights changed to red. Jake knew it was probably useless. The Horizon had only light defensive weapons meant to destroy small asteroids or debris, not fight a real battle. "Lisa, try to contact them." "Ben, I want to know everything you can tell me about those ships." Lisa worked at her station, sending out standard first contact messages on all frequencies. Ben studied the sensor data, his face growing more concerned with each passing minute. "Captain," Ben said, his voice quiet, "these ships are using technology I don't understand. They're not showing up clearly on our sensors, like they're partially invisible or existing in more than one dimension at the same time." Jake had trained for first contact situations, but this felt different. 12 massive ships approaching at incredible speed did not seem like a peaceful exploration mission. "Contact," Lisa announced. "They're responding on multiple frequencies at once. The translation computer is working on it." The main view screen flickered, and suddenly the bridge of the Horizon was filled with an alien voice. It was deep and musical, but there was something cold about it that made Jake's skin crawl. "Unknown vessel, you are in territory claimed by the Zephyrian Empire. Identify yourselves immediately." Jake stepped forward. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Horizon. We are a peaceful exploration vessel from the planet Earth. We were not aware this system was claimed by anyone." The screen flickered again and an alien face appeared. Jake tried not to show his shock. The being looked almost human, but its skin was pale blue and seemed to glow with its own light. Its eyes were large and completely black, and when it spoke, Jake could see rows of sharp teeth. "I am Admiral Vextar of the Hegemony Fleet. Your species is unknown to us human. You will submit to immediate boarding and inspection." "I'm sorry, Admiral, but we cannot allow that," Jake replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "We are on a peaceful mission and request safe passage through your space." The alien's face changed, showing what Jake thought might be amusement. "You request? Small human ship, you do not understand your situation. Observe." The view screen changed to show space around the Horizon. Jake's breath caught in his throat. 12 enormous ships had appeared around them, seemingly from nowhere. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time, looking more like living creatures than machines. Their hulls seemed to pulse with soft light, and they moved through space like swimming through water. Impressive, are they not? Admiral Vextar's voice continued. Each of these vessels carries enough firepower to destroy your primitive worlds. We have conquered 17 star systems with fleets like this one. Ben whispered to Jake. Captain, these ships are beyond anything we have. Our weapons wouldn't even scratch their hulls. Admiral Vextar seemed to hear him somehow. Your science officer speaks truth, human. But I am not without mercy. I will demonstrate our power so you understand your position. One of the alien ships moved toward a large asteroid floating nearby. Jake watched as the ship extended what looked like a living weapon from its hull. A beam of energy that seemed to bend space itself reached out and touched the asteroid. The asteroid didn't explode or break apart. It simply stopped existing. One moment it was there, a chunk of rock the size of a small moon, and the next moment there was nothing but empty space. Lisa gasped. How is that possible? Your primitive science cannot understand our weapons, the alien admiral said. We do not merely destroy matter. We convince reality that the matter never existed in the first place. Jake felt the weight of the situation, settling on his shoulders. These beings had technology that seemed like magic compared to human science. If they wanted to destroy Earth, there might be nothing anyone could do to stop them. What do you want from us? Jake asked. Your species will surrender to the Zephyrian Empire. You will be evaluated for usefulness. Those who prove valuable will be allowed to serve the Empire. Those who do not will be relocated to preserve the peace of the galaxy. Relocated where? The Admiral's smile was not pleasant. That is not your concern. You have 72 of your Earth hours to contact your leaders and arrange for surrender. If you refuse, we will begin the systematic occupation of your worlds. Your colonies will be the first to fall, followed by your homeworld. Jake's mind raced. He had to get word back to Earth, but these alien ships could probably stop any message he tried to send. We'll need time to contact our government, Jake said. Time you have, but do not attempt to flee or call for help. My ships are faster than yours, and we can track you across the galaxy. Use your time wisely, human. Consider the fate of the 17 civilizations that chose to resist us. The alien's face disappeared from the screen, leaving Jake and his crew staring at the 12 massive ships surrounding them. Lisa broke the silence first. Captain, what are we going to do? Jake looked at his crew, these people who trusted him to keep them safe. Outside, alien ships with unimaginable weapons waited for humanity's answer. Earth had no idea what was coming, and the Horizon was the only ship that could warn them. We're going to send a message to Earth, Jake said quietly. And then we're going to pray that someone back home is smarter than we are. He knew that humanity's survival might depend on the next 72 hours. The aliens thought they were dealing with a primitive species that would surrender without a fight. Jake hoped they were wrong. The emergency meeting room deep beneath New Geneva was filled with tension. Admiral Kate Sullivan sat at the head of the long metal table, her face grim as she watched the recording from Captain Morrison's ship for the third time. Around her, the most important military leaders from across human space tried to process what they were seeing. General Rick Adams from the Terran Space Marines leaned back in his chair. 17 star systems, he said slowly. These aliens have conquered 17 civilizations. And now they want to add us to their collection, replied Colonel Mary Johnson from the Mars Colonial Authority. Her red hair was pulled back tightly, and her green eyes showed the stress they were all feeling. Dr. Amy Foster, head of the Experimental Weapons Division, was studying data on her tablet. She was younger than most people in the room, but everyone respected her brilliant mind. The way that asteroid just disappeared, she said. It's not normal destruction. They're using some kind of reality manipulation technology. Admiral Sullivan stood up and walked to the large screen showing a map of human territory. Red dots marked every human colony and outpost spread across 47 star systems. How long do we have before their main fleet reaches Earth? Based on the speed Captain Morrison reported, maybe 6 days, answered Captain Frank Miller, head of Space Traffic Control. That's if they come straight here without stopping at our outer colonies first. They'll stop, General Adams said, with certainty. Military doctrine says you secure your supply lines before attacking the main target. They'll hit our mining stations and agricultural worlds first. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Millions of civilians lived on those outer colonies, far from any military protection. We need to evacuate the outer worlds, Colonel Johnson suggested. With what ships? Admiral Sullivan asked. We don't have enough transport vessels to move, even half the people from our border colonies. And where would we put them? Earth is already overcrowded. Dr. Foster looked up from her tablet. Maybe we don't have to evacuate everyone. All eyes turned to her. She was known for having crazy ideas that somehow worked. What are you thinking, Amy? Admiral Sullivan asked. Dr. Foster stood up and walked to the screen. For 50 years, we've been working on Project Blackout. Everyone in this room knows about it, but we've never talked about actually using it. General Adams shifted uncomfortably. Amy, those weapons were designed as a last resort. The testing showed they might work, but we've never used them in real combat. What exactly is Project Blackout? Colonel Johnson asked. She was new to the inner circle and hadn't been briefed on all of humanity's secret projects. Admiral Sullivan pressed a button, and the screen changed to show technical drawings of a large warship. The UES Retribution and her sister ships. We've been building them in secret shipyards around Jupiter for decades. The ship on the screen looked nothing like the sleek exploration vessels that most people associated with human space travel. It was angular and brutal, covered in gun turrets and armor plating. It looked like it was designed for one purpose only: war. How many ships like this do we have? Colonel Johnson asked. 237, Dr. Foster answered, all hidden in asteroid fields and gas giant storms throughout human space. Each one carries weapons that other species would consider impossible or insane. Captain Miller leaned forward. What kind of weapons? Dr. Foster smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Railguns that can accelerate tungsten rods to 12% of light speed, antimatter torpedoes that can crack a moon in half, and the Ragnarok device. What's the Ragnarok device? General Adams asked, though his voice suggested he wasn't sure he wanted to know. It weaponizes the collapse of space-time itself, Dr. Foster explained. While other species try to bend reality, we break it. The device creates a localized implosion that drags everything nearby into a dimensional void. The room was quiet as everyone tried to understand what she had just said. Admiral, Sullivan spoke first. Amy, are you suggesting we fight these aliens? I'm suggesting we show them that humans don't surrender, Dr. Foster replied. They've conquered 17 civilizations because those civilizations tried to match them technology for technology. We're going to do something different. Different how? Colonel Johnson asked. General Adams answered before Dr. Foster could speak. Brute force. While they've been perfecting elegant solutions, we've been perfecting violence. Dr. Foster nodded. Exactly. Their ships are biological, designed to adapt and evolve during combat. Our ships are mechanical, designed to deliver overwhelming firepower before the enemy can adapt. Admiral Sullivan walked back to her chair. Even if this works, we're talking about starting a war with an empire that spans 17 star systems. They started the war when they gave us an ultimatum, Dr. Foster pointed out. We're just choosing to fight instead of surrender. Captain, Miller was looking at the technical specifications on his tablet. These railguns, they fire 300 rounds per minute? From each gun, Dr. Foster confirmed. The Retribution has 48 main battery guns. That's over 14,000 rounds per minute of tungsten rods moving at near light speed. Colonel Johnson whistled softly. That's not a weapon. That's a natural disaster. Which is exactly what we want, General Adams said. These aliens expect us to be primitive. Let's show them what human primitive looks like when we put our minds to it. Admiral Sullivan looked around the room at each person. If we do this, there's no going back. We'll be committing all of humanity to a fight we might not win. We definitely won't win if we surrender, Dr. Foster said. At least this way we go down fighting. The Admiral thought for a long moment. Outside, she knew that millions of people were going about their daily lives unaware that their entire species was about to face extinction or war. "Who do we have to command the retribution?" she asked. "Captain Steve Palmer," General Adams answered immediately. "He led the assault fleets during the Titan mining wars. If anyone can make this work, it's him." Admiral Sullivan nodded. Steve Palmer was a legend in military circles. He had spent 20 years fighting pirates and rebels in the outer system, and he had never lost a battle. "Get him here immediately," she ordered. "Amy, I want every blackout ship ready for combat within 48 hours. Rick, start moving our regular fleet into defensive positions around Earth, but keep them back. If this goes wrong, they'll be our last line of defense." Colonel Johnson raised her hand. "What about the colonies? Do we abandon them?" "No," Admiral Sullivan said firmly. "We fight for every single human life, but we fight smart." "Amy, can your blackout ships protect the outer colonies?" Dr. Foster was already working on her tablet. "If we position them correctly, yes. The aliens won't expect us to have ships in deep space. We can use that surprise to our advantage." "Do it," the Admiral ordered, "and send a message to Captain Morrison. Tell him to keep his ship exactly where it is and act like we're considering surrender. I want those aliens to think we're weak and scared right up until the moment we show them how wrong they are." General Adams stood up. "Admiral, are you sure about this? Once we fire the first shot, every human in the galaxy becomes a target." Admiral Sullivan looked at the map of human space one more time. 47 star systems, billions of people, all depending on the decisions made in this room. "Rick, 50 years ago, my grandfather fought in the Third World War. When people asked him why he kept fighting when the odds were against him, he said something I've never forgotten. He said that humans don't fight because we think we can win. We fight because some things are worth fighting for, win or lose." She turned to face everyone in the room. "Our freedom is worth fighting for. Our right to exist as free beings is worth fighting for. These aliens think they can just show up and demand our surrender because they have bigger ships. They're about to learn that the size of your ship doesn't matter if you don't know how to use it properly." Dr. Foster smiled, and this time it was a real smile. "Admiral, I think they're going to be very surprised." "I'm counting on it, Admiral," Sullivan replied. "Now let's go show the galaxy what humans do when someone threatens our home." Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the horizon, watching the countdown timer on his screen. 72 hours had passed since Admiral Vextar gave humanity the ultimatum. In 6 minutes, the deadline would expire, and Jake had no idea what would happen next. The 12 Zephyrian ships had remained in formation around the horizon for the entire 3 days. They moved like living things, their hulls pulsing with soft light that changed colors slowly from blue to green to purple. Sometimes Jake thought he could see the ships breathing. "Captain," Lisa said from her station, "I'm picking up massive energy signatures from the edge of the solar system." Jake felt his heart skip. "How many ships?" Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her controls. Her face went pale. "Captain, I count 47 vessels. They're bigger than the ships around us." "Doctor?" Ben Carter looked up from his science station. "The largest one is 12 kilometers long. I've never seen anything that size move through space." On the view screen, space began to shimmer like heat waves rising from hot pavement. One by one, the Zephyrian fleet became visible. Jake had thought the 12 ships around his vessel were impressive, but they were nothing compared to what he was seeing now. The alien fleet moved in a formation that looked like a giant flower blooming in space. The largest ship was at the center, surrounded by rings of smaller vessels. But even the smallest ships were twice the size of anything humans had ever built. Admiral Vextar's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Jake could see what looked like a living bridge made of curved organic walls that pulsed with their own light. "Human Captain Morrison," the alien said, "your time has expired. Have your leaders accepted the generous terms of surrender?" Jake had received his orders from Earth 2 days ago. He was to stall for as much time as possible and make the aliens think humanity was considering surrender. "Admiral, my government is still discussing your offer. We need more time to convince all the human colonies to agree." Vextar's black eyes seemed to grow larger. Time is a luxury you no longer possess. We will now demonstrate why resistance is futile. The main screen changed to show Earth in the distance. Jake could see the blue and white marble that was humanity's home, looking small and fragile against the darkness of space. Your world is beautiful, Vextar continued. It would be unfortunate to damage it unnecessarily. But first, we will show you what happens to those who resist the Empire. Several of the alien ships began to move toward Earth's orbital defense platforms. Jake knew those platforms were armed with humanity's best weapons, but he also knew they wouldn't be enough. Captain, Ben said quietly, those defense platforms have crews. There are over 3,000 people on them. Jake clenched his fists. He wanted to do something, anything, but the horizon was helpless. Their weapons couldn't even dent the hull of a single Zephyrian ship. The first alien vessel approached defense, Platform Alpha, humanity's largest orbital fortress. The platform was a massive ring of metal and concrete that housed enough firepower to destroy a small fleet of human ships. The defense platform opened fire first. Laser beams and missile barrages struck the alien ship, but they had no effect at all. The energy weapons seemed to pass right through the ship's hull, while the missiles simply vanished before they could explode. Their defensive systems don't just stop our weapons, Ben observed. They make our weapons stop existing. The Zephyrian ship extended what looked like a living tentacle from its hull. The tentacle touched the defense platform, and immediately, the entire structure began to change. The metal started to glow and bend, reshaping itself into something that looked more like a flower than a weapons platform. They're not destroying it, Lisa said in amazement. They're changing it into something else. Within minutes, Defense Platform Alpha had been transformed into a beautiful crystalline structure that pulsed with the same light as the alien ships. Jake realized with horror that the 300 people who had been on the platform were probably still alive inside, but they were no longer human. Biological conversion, Vexitar explained, as if he was giving a science lesson. Your people are not destroyed. They are improved, made into better versions of themselves that can serve the Empire properly. The alien fleet moved to the next defense platform, and the process repeated. One by one, humanity's orbital defenses were converted into alien structures. The people inside were changed into something else, something that would serve the Zephyrian Empire. Jake felt sick watching it happen. This was worse than simple destruction. The aliens were taking away everything that made humans human. Your species shows promise, Vextar continued. Your bodies are adaptable, and your minds are creative. Under proper guidance, you could become valuable servants of the Empire. And if we refuse? Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. Vextar smiled, showing his rows of sharp teeth. Then you will be relocated to preserve galactic peace. The 17 civilizations that came before you made the same choice you now face. Some chose wisdom and accepted conversion. Others chose foolishness and were removed. The main screen changed to show images of dead worlds. Planets that had once been green and blue were now gray and lifeless. Cities that had once housed millions of beings were empty ruins covered in strange alien plants. We are gardeners, Vextar explained. We cultivate useful species and remove those that serve no purpose. Your choice will determine which category humanity falls into. Jake tried to think of something to say, some way to buy more time, but before he could speak, a new voice came over the communication system. This is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the United Earth Defense Force, responding to your ultimatum. Vextar's expression changed to one of interest. Ah, finally. A leader with the authority to surrender on behalf of your species. I'm not here to surrender, Admiral Sullivan's voice said calmly. I'm here to reject your demands and inform you that humanity chooses to fight. The alien admiral laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. Fight? With what? We have seen your primitive weapons. Your kinetic projectiles and chemical explosives are toys compared to our technology. You're right about one thing, Admiral Sullivan replied. Our weapons are primitive, but sometimes primitive is exactly what you need. Jake saw something on his sensors that made him blink in surprise. Ships were appearing throughout the solar system, coming out of hiding places in asteroid fields and behind moons. They didn't look like any human ships he had ever seen. The new ships were ugly compared to the flowing lines of the Zephyrian vessels. They looked like flying weapons platforms, covered in gun turrets and armor plating. They were built for war, nothing else. "What manner of vessels are these?" Vextar demanded, his voice losing some of its confidence. "These are what humans build when we're serious about fighting," Admiral Sullivan answered. "You wanted to see our technology? Let me introduce you to the UES Retribution." One ship moved forward from the human fleet. It was smaller than Vextar's flagship, but it looked more dangerous than anything Jake had ever seen. Every surface was covered with weapons, and it moved through space like a predator hunting prey. "I am Captain Steve Palmer," a new voice said. "Admiral Vextar, you've made 2 mistakes. First, you assumed we would surrender without a fight. Second, you assumed our primitive weapons couldn't hurt you." Vextar's image flickered with what Jake thought might be anger. "Your weapons cannot touch us, human. We exist partially outside your reality. Your physical projectiles pass through us like shadows." "That's what everyone thinks," Captain Palmer replied, "right up until they realize that sometimes the best way to solve a complicated problem is with a simple solution. You want to see primitive? Let me show you what human primitive looks like." The Retribution began to move toward Vextar's flagship. Jake could see weapon systems coming online all across its hull. Whatever was about to happen, he knew it would change everything. "Your funeral, primitive creature," Vextar snarled. "Witness the power of the eternal bloom." The alien flagship began to change, its hull shifting and flowing like liquid metal. Weapons that looked like living creatures emerged from its surface, each one glowing with the power to reshape reality itself. Jake held his breath. In the next few minutes, he would find out if humanity had any hope of survival, or if they were about to be wiped out by forces beyond their understanding. Captain Steve Palmer stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching the alien flagship grow larger on his main screen. The eternal bloom was the most beautiful and terrifying thing he had ever seen. It looked like a living flower made of
metal and light, 8 kilometers of biomechanical perfection that seemed to dance through space. His own ship was the exact opposite. The Retribution was gray metal and sharp angles, covered in gun turrets that looked like mechanical eyes. Where?
The alien ship flowed like water. His ship cut through space like a knife. "All weapon systems online, Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander Nancy White from the tactical station. She was young, but had trained on these weapons for 5 years. Railgun batteries charged and ready. Antimatter torpedoes loaded in all tubes. "Engineering reports all systems green," called out Chief Engineer Paul Davis from his station. "Ragnarok devices armed and ready for your command." Palmer nodded. Around him, his crew of 200 worked with calm efficiency. They all knew what they were fighting for. Not just Earth, but the right of humans to exist as free beings. The space between Earth and Luna had been cleared of all civilian traffic. Both fleets faced each other across 1,000,000 kilometers of empty space. Palmer could see the other human ships holding position, waiting for his signal. 236 warships against 47 alien vessels. Admiral Vextar's face appeared on the communication screen. Behind him, Palmer could see the organic bridge of the eternal bloom, with walls that pulsed like a heartbeat. "Human Captain Palmer," the alien said, "you have courage, I will grant you that. But courage without wisdom is simply another word for suicide." "Maybe," Palmer replied. "But we're going to find out together." Vextar's black eyes seemed to glow with amusement. "Very well. I will make this quick. Your death will serve as an example to the rest of your species." The alien flagship began to change. Its hull started to shift and flow, becoming partially transparent. Palmer watched as the ship seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, fading in and out of normal space. "Captain," Nancy called out, "I'm having trouble maintaining a target lock. The ship keeps shifting between dimensional states." Palmer had expected this. Human intelligence had studied the alien technology for 3 days, and they had found patterns in how it worked. "Target the areas that stay solid," he ordered. "Every alien ship has anchor points that keep it connected to our reality. Find them And lock on. The Eternal Bloom fired first. Energy beams that twisted space itself reached out toward the Retribution. Palmer watched as reality bent around his ship. The alien weapons trying to convince the universe that his vessel had never existed. But the Retribution's shields held. They were based on quantum field manipulation, creating interference patterns that disrupted the alien reality warping technology. The energy beams struck the shields and scattered harmlessly into space. "Impossible," Vextar snarled. "Your primitive technology cannot resist our weapons." "You're right," Palmer said calmly. "Our technology is primitive, that's exactly why it works." He turned to Nancy. "All railgun batteries continuous fire. Show them what human primitive looks like." The Retribution's main weapons opened fire. 48 railgun turrets began launching tungsten rods at 12% of light speed. Each rod was only a meter, long and 10 centimeters wide, but at that velocity it hit with the force of a small nuclear weapon. The alien ship's defenses tried to adapt. Its biomechanical hull began to shift and change, trying to become harder or more flexible to absorb the impacts. But Palmer had planned for this too. 300 rounds per minute per gun, he said to his crew. Their ship can adapt to our weapons, but it takes time. We're not giving them that time. Over 14,000 tungsten rods per minute hammered into the alien flagship. Each impact sent shockwaves through the Eternal Bloom's hull. The ship's biological armor tried to adapt, but new rounds kept hitting before it could finish changing. "Hull breach on the alien ship," Nancy reported. "Multiple sections showing damage." But Vextar was not finished. The Eternal Bloom began to phase completely out of normal space, becoming a ghostly outline that the human weapons could not touch. "You cannot hit what exists outside your reality," the alien admiral announced. Palmer smiled. "Nancy, activate the Ragnarok device." "Ragnarok device armed and ready, Captain. Fire." A new weapon emerged from the Retribution's hull. It looked like a simple metal tube, but the energy building inside it made space itself vibrate. When it fired, it didn't launch a projectile. Instead, it created a localized collapse of spacetime. The area around the Eternal Bloom began to twist and fold in on itself. The alien ship, which had been safely hidden in higher dimensional space, was suddenly dragged back into normal reality. The collapse created a gravitational anchor that held the ship in place. "What have you done?" Vextar demanded, his voice filled with shock. "We broke your playground," Palmer replied. "You like to hide in other dimensions? Fine. We'll just collapse those dimensions and drag you back to where we can shoot you." The railgun bombardment resumed. Now that the alien ship was trapped in normal space, every shot hit home. The Eternal Bloom's beautiful hull began to crack and buckle under the relentless assault. But the alien admiral had one more trick. The damaged sections of his ship began to regenerate, growing back like living tissue. New weapons emerged from the hull, biomechanical cannons that fired streams of energy that could cut through planets. "Your ship heals itself," Palmer observed. "Impressive. Nancy, launch antimatter torpedoes, all tubes, maximum spread." 24 antimatter torpedoes launched from the Retribution. Each one contained enough explosive power to destroy a city. They streaked through space toward the regenerating alien ship. The Eternal Bloom's defenses tried to stop them. Energy beams reached out to detonate the torpedoes early, but the human weapons were designed for this. Each torpedo was surrounded by a shield that absorbed energy attacks until the last possible second. The first torpedo penetrated the alien ship's hull and detonated deep inside. The antimatter explosion tore through multiple decks, creating a wound that even the ship's regeneration systems couldn't heal quickly. More torpedoes followed. Each explosion weakened the alien ship further, overwhelming its ability to repair itself. "Hull integrity at 30%, Nancy reported. "The alien ship is breaking apart." But Palmer wasn't done. The Ragnarok device was still active, and he had one more use for it. "Target the ship's power core," he ordered. One more space-time collapse right in their engine room. The device fired again. This time, the collapse happened inside the Eternal Bloom itself. The ship's exotic matter power core, which had been safely contained in a pocket dimension, was suddenly exposed to normal space. The reaction was immediate and catastrophic. Exotic matter and normal matter cannot exist in the same space. The alien ship's power core began to tear itself apart, taking the rest of the vessel with it. Admiral Vextar appeared on the screen one last time. His perfect alien features were twisted with disbelief and rage. "This is impossible," he gasped. "We are the masters of the galaxy. We have conquered 17 star systems. You cannot defeat us with primitive weapons." Palmer looked at the dying alien admiral with something that might have been pity. "You made the same mistake everyone makes when they fight humans. You assumed that advanced meant better. Sometimes the best solution to a complicated problem is the simplest one." "But how?" Vextar demanded. "How did you know our weaknesses?" "Because we're humans," Palmer replied. "When someone tells us something is impossible, we don't give up. We find a way to make it possible. Your technology is amazing, but it has rules. Everything has rules. We just figured out how to break yours." The eternal bloom began to break apart. Pieces of biomechanical hull drifted away into space, their lights fading one by one. Admiral Vextar's image flickered and disappeared as his ship died around him. Palmer turned to his crew. "Signal the fleet. Mission accomplished. One alien. Flagship destroyed." Around the solar system, the remaining Zephyrian ships stopped moving. For the first time in their species' history, they had watched one of their flagships die in battle. The impossible had happened. Nancy looked up from her station. "Captain, the alien fleet is requesting permission to communicate." Palmer nodded. "Put them through." A new alien face appeared on the screen. This one looked younger than Vextar, with the same pale blue skin but different markings around the eyes. "I am Sub-Admiral Cathera of the Hegemony Fleet," the alien said. Her voice was much quieter than Vextar's had been. "We request a ceasefire to discuss terms." Palmer smiled. "Now you want to talk. What changed your mind?" Cathera looked at the debris field that had once been the eternal bloom. "We need to understand how you did this. Our technology should have made us invincible." "Your technology did make you powerful," Palmer agreed. "But you forgot something important. When humans can't go around a problem, we go through it. When we can't match your technology, we use something you've never seen before." He leaned back in his command chair. "Welcome to humanity, Sub-Admiral. We hope you're ready to learn." Sub-Admiral Cathera stood on the bridge of her ship, the Living Current, staring at the debris field where Admiral Vextar's flagship had been destroyed. For 3,000 years, no Zephyrian vessel had ever been defeated in battle. The Empire had conquered 17 star systems because their biodimensional technology made them untouchable. Now she was looking at pieces of the eternal bloom floating in space, and everything she believed about Zephyrian superiority was crumbling. "Sub-Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "the human fleet is moving into formation around us. 236 vessels, all armed with the same weapons that destroyed the flagship." Cathara's pale blue skin grew even paler. She had 46 ships left in her fleet, but after watching the humans tear apart their most powerful vessel, she wasn't sure numbers mattered anymore. "Open a channel to the human fleet commander," she ordered. Admiral Kate Sullivan's face appeared on the main screen. She was older than Cathara had expected, with gray hair and lines around her eyes that spoke of years of difficult decisions. But her voice was calm and controlled. "Sub-Admiral Cathara," Admiral Sullivan said, "I understand you wish to discuss terms." "Yes," Cathara replied. "But first I must know, how did you defeat technology that was thousands of years more advanced than yours?" Admiral Sullivan smiled, but it wasn't a cruel smile. "Because advanced doesn't always mean better. Your people spent so long perfecting elegant solutions that you forgot sometimes the best answer is the obvious one." Dr. Amy Foster appeared beside Admiral Sullivan on the screen. "Your biodimensional technology is incredible," she said. "But it follows rules. Everything follows rules. We just figured out how to break the rules you were playing by." Cathara felt confusion mixing with her fear. "But your weapons are so primitive. Kinetic projectiles and antimatter explosives. We abandoned such crude methods millennia ago. And that's exactly why they worked," Captain Steve Palmer's voice added as he joined the conversation. You built defenses against energy weapons and reality manipulation. You never considered that someone might just throw rocks at you really fast. Rocks? Cathara repeated, not understanding. Tungsten rods, Dr. Foster explained. Accelerated to 12% of light speed. At that velocity, a small piece of metal hits with more force than your reality warping weapons can handle. Your ships tried to adapt, but we didn't give them time. Cathara was beginning to understand, and the realization was terrifying. You deliberately chose inferior technology because you knew we wouldn't expect it. Not inferior, Admiral Sullivan corrected. Different. Your people see warfare as an art form, something elegant and beautiful. Humans see warfare as a problem that needs to be solved as quickly and efficiently as possible. Captain Palmer's image appeared alongside the others. When you have a nail that needs hammering, you don't use a precision laser. You use a hammer. Sometimes the simple tool is the right tool. The communication was interrupted by another voice. Admiral Sullivan, this is Captain Morrison aboard the Horizon. The remaining Zephyrian ships are powering down their weapons. Cathara looked around her bridge. It was true. Her fleet was defenseless, floating in space while human warships surrounded them. She had two choices: fight and die, or try to understand these impossible humans. We surrender, she said quietly. We're not asking for surrender, Admiral Sullivan replied. We're asking for peace. Cathara's large black eyes widened in surprise. You're not going to destroy us? Why would we do that? Dr. Foster asked. You came here because you thought we were a primitive species that needed to be conquered or eliminated. Now you know we're not primitive, just different. There's no reason we can't coexist. But we threatened your species, Cathara protested. We destroyed your defense platforms and converted your people. Admiral Sullivan's expression grew harder. And we'll want those people back, unchanged. But we understand that you were following the orders of a superior officer who made bad decisions. Admiral Vextar is dead. You're in command now. What do you choose to do? Cathara felt the weight of decision pressing down on her. She commanded 46 ships and over 2 million Zephyrian lives. One word from her could start a war that would spread across the galaxy. I choose to learn, she said finally. Your species has shown us something we thought was impossible. We need to understand how you think, how you fight, how you solve problems. We couldn't even imagine. Captain Palmer laughed, and the sound was not unkind. Warning. Learning to think like humans can be dangerous to your sanity. We tend to approach problems in ways that other species consider crazy. Like attacking reality-warping aliens with kinetic weapons? Cathara asked. Exactly like that, Palmer confirmed. Over the next several hours, representatives from both fleets met aboard a neutral station near Luna. Cathara found herself sitting across from Admiral Sullivan, Dr. Foster, and Captain Palmer, trying to understand how these humans had turned the impossible into the inevitable. Your Ragnarok device, she said to Dr. Foster. It collapses space-time itself. How did you even conceive of such a weapon? Dr. Foster shrugged. We were trying to solve the problem of enemies that could hide in other dimensions. The obvious solution was to collapse those dimensions and drag them back where we could shoot them. Obvious? Cathara repeated. You're talking about breaking the fundamental structure of reality, only locally, Dr. Foster said, as if that made it less insane. And only temporarily. The space-time repairs itself after a few minutes. Cathara turned to Captain Palmer. And your tactics? Firing thousands of projectiles per minute instead of precise shots. It goes against everything we know about efficient warfare. Palmer smiled. Efficiency isn't always about using the least amount of resources. Sometimes it's about ending the fight as quickly as possible. Your ships could adapt to our weapons given enough time, so we made sure they didn't get that time. But the waste, Cathara protested. The energy expenditure must be enormous. Energy is cheap, Admiral Sullivan said. Human lives aren't. Every second that fight lasted was another second my people were in danger. I'd rather waste 1 million tons of tungsten than lose a single human life. Cathara was quiet for a long moment. The Zephyrian Empire had always prized elegance and efficiency above all else. The idea of deliberately choosing a wasteful solution because it was more effective was alien to her way of thinking. "What happens now?" she asked. "Do you demand tribute, territory, submission?" Admiral Sullivan shook her head. "We want the people you converted returned to normal. We want a promise that you won't attack human colonies. And we want to establish trade and cultural exchange." "That's all?" Kithara was amazed. "You defeat our fleet and you ask for friendship?" "Fighting you was necessary," Admiral Sullivan explained. "Continuing to fight you would just be stupid. Your technology could be very useful to us if we work together, and maybe our way of thinking could be useful to you." Dr. Foster leaned forward. "Besides, you're not the only threat in the galaxy, are you? 17 star systems is a lot of territory for one empire to control. You must have enemies." Kithara nodded slowly. "The hegemony has been at war with the crystalline collective for over a century. They use pure energy beings that can exist as living plasma. Our biodimensional weapons have little effect on them." Captain Palmer grinned. "But I bet kinetic weapons would work just fine. Plasma or not, they still have to obey physics." "You would help us fight the collective?" Kithara asked. "If they're aggressive toward peaceful species, then yes," Admiral Sullivan said. "That's what humans do. We fight bullies, no matter how big they are or what kind of fancy technology they have." 6 months later, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of a new ship, the UES Explorer, watching a joint human-Zephyrian fleet prepare for their first mission together. The aliens had kept their promise, returning all converted humans to their normal state and establishing peaceful relations. Dr. Ben Carter, now promoted to Commander Carter, worked alongside a Zephyrian scientist named Velnara. They were studying reports of a new threat in the Andromeda Spiral, energy beings that consumed entire solar systems. "Captain," Commander Carter called out, "we're receiving a distress signal from the edge of known space. Something about impossible creatures that—" "Eat starlight," Morrison smiled. After fighting reality-warping aliens with primitive weapons, he was ready for anything the galaxy could throw at them. "Set course for the signal," he ordered. "Let's go show the galaxy what humans and Zephyrians can accomplish when we work together." Behind him, Sub-Admiral Kithara, now serving as the Joint Fleet's diplomatic liaison, watched the stars with new understanding. She had learned that sometimes the most powerful weapon wasn't the most advanced one. Sometimes it was just the one nobody expected.